Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're taking a stack of FSS internal reports, some classified intelligence memos, and even a few, let's say, sticky tavern transcripts, and we're going to distill them down into pure, potent insight.
We are. We're strapping ourselves into the fastest survey ship in the Federation fleet for what, on the surface, looks like a classic mission. The hunt for a lost colony.
Right. The Lost Colony mission, it's always been the ultimate frontier challenge for the Federation's survey service.
It has. But this deep dive, which is focused on the planet Morrowvia out in the Argo Sector, it goes so far beyond just an archival search. What we have here is, well, it's a shocking escalation.
It's a clash, a fast-paced clash of private economic ambitions, Federation bureaucracy, and a massive legal and ethical nightmare.
A nightmare that forces the entire interstellar community to look in the mirror and confront its own, frankly, brutal history of genetic engineering.
So our mission today is to unpack these reports from Morrowvia. We need to understand just the dizzying context of its discovery and introduce the key players who are all vying for control.
And we're talking everyone from corporate suits to desperate privateers.
Exactly. And through all that, we're going to expose the stunning legal loophole, the infamous Non-Citizen Act, which was basically designed to classify genetically engineered life forms as, well, as property.
As cattle.
As cattle. And as seems to so often be the case when the frontier gets this complicated, we find one Lieutenant Commander, John Grimes, right at the center of the storm.
Grimes. A highly capable, but let's be honest, a notoriously problematic FSS officer.
A protagonist.
Yeah.
And the sources make it crystal clear he's exactly where Admiral Bering does not want him. He's on the carpet yet again after his, quote, latest antics.
Which the report just calls the Spartan affair.
Right, which forced his transfer. The Admiral, it seems, very reluctantly concedes that for someone so young, Grimes has already achieved a considerable degree of notoriety.
And notoriety in this context really just means political toxicity. I mean, Admiral Bering's main goal is just to get Grimes away from Lindisfarne base.
Why?
Because there's a party of major political VIPs coming for a tour, and Grimes has this dangerous habit of giving brutally honest and often wildly inappropriate answers to silly questions. He's an embarrassment waiting to happen.
So he's exiled. They put him aboard this survey ship Seeker and task him with a deliberate lost colony hunt out near Gamma Argo.
A region Bering probably thought was far enough away for things to cool off. But the orders they give him, I mean, they fly directly in the face of everything we know about John Grimes.
He's to investigate only.
That's it. And he is explicitly warned, in no uncertain terms, not to interfere in internal affairs.
Which is basically like setting a match to dry tinder, because Grimes, he rarely, if ever, respects a hands-off order when he thinks something isn't right.
So let's start with that political climate, the one that made Bering so nervous about Grimes even being at Lindisfarne. It wasn't just, a local headache. The whole interplanetary scene was tense.
That's right. The fallout from that Spartan affair had kind of metastasized into a minor interplanetary crisis. We see these references to the Duchy of Waldegren and the Empire of Waverly talking really loudly about spheres of influence.
Colonial language.
Exactly. And Grimes, through his previous, let's call it clumsy interference, had put the Federation on the defensive. Bering's solution, sending him to the edge of the galaxy, was purely damage control.
It achieved that crucial absence of body during a moment of really high diplomatic sensitivity.
What's so fascinating here, though, and what just speaks volumes about the messy reality of FSS intelligence gathering, is how they even found out about Morrowvia in the first place.
Right. You'd think, this massive military exploratory body would be using advanced deep space sensors or something.
But they weren't. They were relying on tavern gossip and drunken confessions.
It really does read like a low-budget spy thriller. Our first reliable source is an Agent X-1783, who's working in this notorious dive bar, the Red Dragon Tavern on Siluria.
And he's using a tiny Mark 7th recorder. The transcript he gets captures this really telling conversation between officers from two Dog Star Line ships, the Pomeranian and the Corgi.
And the crucial nugget they extract is that the tramp freighter, the Corgi, had suffered a severe mansion drive malfunction. This forced them way off their charted course.
And during this detour, they just stumble upon an Earth-type world. The second mate is bragging about naming it Morrowvia.
And this is where you immediately see the commercial interest surface. The same second mate, who's clearly already had a few too many, mentions his fondness for the planet's sleek women.
And the first mate of the Corgi immediately tries to shut him down. You can just feel the panic in the transcript. A clear, desperate attempt at classification.
A small technical failure for one ship turns into a potentially massive, secret commercial windfall for the entire Dog Star line. But of course, the secret doesn't stay secret for long.
No. Our second source confirms the panic. Over at Port Brown, the same second mate, apparently still on his bender, confides in a sympathetic Shara drone at a pit called the Beer Hive.
And the Shura, being, generally neutral and a good listener, just lets him talk. That gets the whole story.
And you can see how high the stakes are when you look at the corporate response from Danzelin. This same second mate then goes on to commit a major infraction at Port Mackay, abusing his chief officer and master.
Under any normal circumstances, that's an immediate dismissal. He'd be fired on the spot, probably handed over to the civil authorities.
But Captain Danzelin was. Well, the report says notably reluctant to let him go.
It's pure organizational panic in action. The Dog Star Line, this huge economic empire, realizes they've accidentally stumbled on a gold mine, a whole new planet, perfect for trade, for tourism, for expansion.
And they can't risk this second mate getting fired and then drunkenly spilling all the details to a commercial rival. Or worse, to the Federation.
No. So they keep the volatile source under internal control, confirming just how intensely valuable they already considered Morrowvia to be.
But before Seeker can even get close to the coordinates, Grimes has another complication to deal with. A big one, in the form of Captain Drongo Kane.
Ah, Drongo Kane. The FSS reports define him as a known quantity. He's described as a professional smuggler, a gun runner, and an unproven pirate.
But one who always, somehow, manages to stay just on the right side of the law. He's a specialist in legal gray areas.
Kane is the ultimate opportunist, and he moves incredibly fast. Our third piece of intelligence comes from, well, probably the most colorful source we have.
Port Fortinbras on Elsinore.
Courtesy of the agent known only as the Bug Queen, who is famous for embedding these high-quality recorders into the labels of cheap liquor bottles.
An amazing technique.
It is. And it documented a conversation that revealed Kane was having his ship, the Southerly Buster, modified.
And the modifications, they tell you the entire story of his intent. He was converting cargo spaces, spaces usually meant for bulk goods or machinery, into passenger accommodation.
Which strongly suggests he wasn't planning on hauling minerals.
Not at all. And at the same time, far more aggressively, he was installing 2 quick-firing cannon.
And Kane's legal team, of course, assured the repair yard owner that this heavy armament was technically only defensive.
Right, which is crucial. It keeps him legally safe. But it gives the Southerly Buster the firepower of a patrol cutter.
He knew he was walking into a contested zone, and he was not going to be stopped by some local authority or, a lightly armed survey ship.
And we learn his intel came through the same grapevine. A sympathetic Shara drone who was plied with scotch and relayed the whole Corgi story.
And the Bug Queen's recorder picked up Kane, muttering this one phrase: lost colonies and finders being keepers.
That says it all. It reveals his entire coup plot. He intends to get there first, seize control, or lay some kind of claim to the population before the Federation can assert its authority.
So the stage is set for a 3-way race. You've got the Federation with Grimes, you've got Big Business, the Dog Star Line, and you've got the privateer, Kane.
This race to Morrowvia involves 3 very different ships, which this is probably a good moment to pause for the learner and just establish the sheer technological gulf between the original colonists and the modern FSS.
Yes, that's a good idea. It really helps explain why Morrowvia was truly lost for so many centuries.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We need to go back, way back, to the technology of the second expansion. The original interstellar ships were called Gauss jammers. How did they work with the Aaron half-drive?
The Aaron half-drive was, well, it was revolutionary for its time, but dangerously crude by our standards. It worked by generating an immense magnetic current, which effectively turned the entire ship into a huge, highly charged magnetic particle.
Okay, so to go FTL, this magnetic particle proceeded along these established, stable lines of magnetic force.
Exactly. What the source is often called tram lines. So it wasn't like modern FTL where you're generating a localized distortion field. It was much more like following a physical, pre-existing pathway through space.
Which sounds incredibly risky.
Oh, it created astronomical risk. The core problem was instability. A severe magnetic storm, which are common near galactic cores or certain stellar phenomena, could do 2 things at once. First, It could tangle the lines of force like so much spaghetti.
Throwing a ship light years off course into totally uncharted space.
And second, and this is the critical part, that same storm would often drain the ship's main micropile, the primary power source of all its energy.
So you're stranded, light years from help, and your propulsion is completely dead. Survival then relied entirely on these desperate measures.
Right, relying on emergency power, which was typically just old-fashioned, high-efficiency diesel generators.
And that required a really specific, almost arcane skill set. The ship's biochemists needed to know how to synthesize diesel fuel from whatever raw materials were available.
In a worst-case scenario, this meant sacrificing essential food rations or, consuming biologically vital matter just to keep the lights on and the life support cycling while they search for a habitable world.
And this whole process, the long drift and the desperate search, that's exactly how the Morrowvians, carried by the load cougar, ended up so far out in the Argo Sector.
Exactly. Now, jump forward centuries to the present. The FSS Seeker is using the Advanced Mansion Drive, which cheats by operating in a localized time field. It goes astern in time as it goes ahead in space.
And Grimes knows he has to push this advantage. So he pushes Seeker to its maximum safe velocity, slightly over 1.5 Gs of acceleration.
Which is where we get into the operational stress. That sustained 1.5 G creates a really significant and uncomfortable temporal precession rate. For the crew, this means they're experiencing a continuous disorienting sense of déjà vu.
Where time feels like it's slightly looped or unstable.
It's highly fatiguing. It directly affects your judgment. Maggie Lazenby, the ethologist, even complains that she feels like she weighs 14 times her normal weight.
So that temporal stress is crucial. It's not just a physical discomfort, it's a hard operational limit. It explains why Grimes can't just crank the drive up even further.
Precisely. Pushing it harder risks catastrophic pilot error. And that's compounded by the fact that the main drive governor is already acting up, forcing the engineers to rely on manual control. They are running on the absolute ragged edge of safe operation.
And they're doing it because they know the competition is closing in fast. Seeker's only real advantage relies on FSS intelligence.
And that intelligence comes through Lieutenant Hayakawa, Seeker's Psionic Communications Officer, or PCO.
Hayakawa. He initially detects this faint psionic radiation. It's from a young, immature mind thinking about Morrowvia and someone named Tabitha.
And Grimes immediately and correctly attributes this to Drongo Kane's ship.
But Kane isn't careless.
No. Hayakawa later confirms that Kane's PCO, a woman named Myra Bracegirdle, is maintaining a very tight psionic block. Kane clearly understands the value of operational security.
This is where it gets really interesting, though, because we get this crucial real-time intelligence not from a strategic blunder or tech failure, but from a purely emotional one.
Yes. Myra Bracegirdle, despite her professionalism, sometimes lets her personal thoughts slip when she's under stress. And she absolutely despises the mate, Aloysius Dreebly.
The report says he tries to force his attentions on her.
Exactly. So it's in these moments of psychological distress and resentment that Hayakawa intercepts these fragments. And they reveal that Kane's ship would arrive in 7 days.
Which gives Grimes a time-to-target estimate. It lets him calculate the race with precision.
Meanwhile, Grimes confirms that the Dog Star Line is absolutely making their move. The rumors were true. They've dispatched a small, fast, defensively armed ship called the Schnauzer.
This is their corporate countermove. Captain Dan Zellen, the former master of the Corgi, the original Discovery ship, is in command, so they have that institutional knowledge.
But crucially, also on board is Francis Delamere, the second mate, who is the nephew of the general manager.
Nepotism.
Pure nepotism. It confirms the intense commercial intent. Dog Star is prioritizing family ties to ensure corporate control over this prize world. They see Morrowvia as nothing more than a major business opportunity.
So Grimes crunches the numbers. He calculates Seeker has the heels of the Schnauzer. He estimates they have about 60 hours, standard so, roughly 2 Morrowvian days of a head start before Dan Zellen arrives.
But Kane is already there, or extremely close. Grimes is flying into a situation that is already being controlled by his rivals.
So Seeker finally reaches the Argo Sector. The initial assessment confirms Morrowvia is, well, it's a pristine Earth-type world, unspoiled.
They see these faint yellowish lights on the night side, clusters that indicate intelligent life, but what's conspicuously absent is that telltale industrial smog that you see over most human colonies.
It's a paradise, but one that's already been claimed. As they expected, Kane is down first. He's maintained his facade of absolute legality by landing at a convenient, cleared site.
And Grimes, as soon as he arrives, immediately clocks the competition. He notes that Southerly Buster's so-called defensive armament looks more like that of a young battleship.
The posture is aggressive, even if the paperwork is clean.
Before meeting any of the locals, Grimes has an encounter with Kane's mate, this Aloysius Dreebly skeletal, bald, yellow-skinned. The source material is surprisingly descriptive of Grimes's immediate visceral reaction to him.
He judges Dreebly so harshly, he writes in his log. I wouldn't trust him behind me. He'd either kiss my arse or stab me in the back or both.
That kind of immediate, deep suspicion of character is important. Grimes recognizes Dreebly as the kind of person who uses legal loopholes to commit acts of brutality.
When Grimes finally meets the local inhabitants, he's immediately struck by their appearance. They're handsome, unclothed, with skin ranging from pale gold to dark brown.
And they move with this almost unnatural fluidity, what the source refers to as a cat-like smoothness.
The leader of the party that arrives at Seeker's landing site is Maya of Cambridge. Her family name is Smith, and she's the elected queen of Cambridge.
And Grimes, being the consummate observer, starts taking these mental notes of peculiar physical traits, things that seem insignificant at first, but are actually the entire key to the mystery.
He notes her peculiar greenish-yellow eyes, her oddly chubby bare feet, and her teeth. Her teeth look sharp, the teeth of a carnivore.
He also notices something else, this subtle but startling presence of a rudimentary nipple beneath each of her true breasts. These are biological anomalies that immediately signal some kind of deviation from baseline human norms.
But he hasn't made the full connection yet.
Not yet. And Maya is quickly dismissive of her rival, Sabrina of Oxford, who is currently entertaining Kane near the Southerly Buster. She refers to her simply, and with real scorn, as that cat.
That's the first time we see that specific terminology used as an insult. It suggests a kind of internal conflict within Morrovian society itself.
This brings us to the crucial cultural clues left by the original colonist, Morrow. Morrovia's towns are all named after familiar Earth cities: Cambridge, Melbourne, Ballarat, Kingston, Oxford.
It clearly establishes an Earth origin and links them directly to the second expansion.
And critically, the family names. They only have 4 of them: Smith, Wells, Morrow, and Cordwainer.
Which suggests only 4 male survivors from the Lode Cougar tragedy. It hints at a period of, well, intense polygamous marriages and a desperate effort to rebuild the population from the absolute brink of extinction.
And Morrow, the founder, intentionally used these Earth-based names. It was a strategy, really. It was designed to ensure that when they were rediscovered, the colony's essential humanity would be recognized, even if the colonists themselves had physically deviated.
A conscious attempt to use cultural markers to secure their future legal status.
We also learned about their unique government structure. It's completely decentralized. It just consists of these elected queens whose duties are purely mayoral.
There is no planetary authority, no public health infrastructure, and, most vulnerable of all, no standing army or police force.
They are entirely unequipped to deal with interstellar commerce, let alone interstellar conflict. Their entire society is structured around what they call Morrow's dictum.
They have this book, The History of Foundational Text, printed back when their machines were still working, and it details Earth and the Lode Cougar's voyage.
And they adhere so strictly to Morrow's anti-pollution advice. Beware of the machine, because machine wastes pollute the world. They actually view the breakdown of their technology not as a tragedy, but as their good luck.
Grimes tries to establish some rapport with Maya. He introduces her to something called Angel's Tears, a high-alcohol liqueur.
She calls it firewater, but she loves it mixed with chocolate ice cream.
Which is a small but telling detail. Their lack of modern technology means they don't have simple comforts like refrigeration. Ice cream would be a profound novelty.
And the ecological differences further cement this intentional preservation of cultural names. The salmon that Maya describes is not a fish at all, but an ichthyoid that looks more like a scaly seal.
Morrow didn't bother finding true equivalents. He just applied Earth names to alien life forms to preserve their cultural memory.
Most importantly, Maya claims theirs is a peaceable society. Fighting, except against, natural predators like wolves and eagles, is unthinkable and not human. They value privacy to an extreme.
And this profound vulnerability, their cultural inability to even conceptualize conflict, is exactly what Kane and the Dog Star Line are getting ready to weaponize.
So we have these 2 competing models of exploitation arriving at the same time. You have Kane's immediate, violent criminal intent, and then you have Dan Zellin's more subtle, corporate, long-term erosion of their culture.
Let's start with Kane. The analysis of the film footage that Seeker secured shows him wooing Sabrina, the Queen of Oxford, and his gifts are just so calculated to appeal to a people who have been deprived of novelty for centuries.
Kane's trade goods are, by Federation standards, just cheap trinkets. Synthetic diamonds, shiny mirrors, knives, scissors, children's toys.
They're visually appealing, high-impact items that must have cost Kane pennies, but the most sought-after items, they weren't the diamonds.
No, they were the brightly colored, glossy brochures and handouts from the tourist bureaus of all these glamorous worlds.
Kane wasn't selling material goods. He was selling a dream of escape, a life of luxury and endless novelty. He was weaponizing envy.
Meanwhile, Dan Zellen and the Dogstar Line are already executing their own strategy. They land at Melbourne, a town that, unlike Cambridge, has modernized with glazed windows, which indicates a willingness to accept some technology.
And Dan Zellen is operating under this facade of benevolent capitalism.
Right. The Dogstar plan is to bring in necessary small luxuries. Things like solar-powered refrigerators and cookers, the kind of low-impact tech that Morrow might have tolerated. But here's the hook.
They don't expect the Morrowvians to pay for any of it.
Their payment plan relies entirely on tourism. The whole plan is to sell Morrowvia as the ultimate naturist resort. They're advertising it as being better than Arcadia.
So they're aiming to capitalize on the beautiful, unclothed people and market it as a holiday resort for the idle rich.
It's colonialism wrapped in a holiday brochure. They see it as benevolent exploitation, keeping the planet pristine while generating massive profits for the corporation.
Grimes, Danslin, and Maya then travel together to Ballarat, which was the ancient landing site of the Lode Cougar, and they are immediately snubbed by Janine, the Queen of Ballarat.
She denies them entry, stating she's in a conference with Kane, who has clearly secured a much stronger position in her town.
And she uses that crucial, contemptuous phrase, directed at Maya. She calls her that cat from Cambridge and says she should be kept out.
And that term cat is clearly used to denote a specific internal class or maybe a lineage rivalry that's based on their underlying genetic reality.
While they're waiting outside Ballarat, Grimes monitors Kane's communications using Seeker's advanced scanners, and Kane sends a single, chilling, one-word code to the Southerly Buster. Blackbird. And Saul, Grimes's officer, immediately connects this to blackbirding.
The historic euphemism for the forced recruitment and subsequent sale of laborers, a word that is universally understood across the Federation to mean slave trading.
The implication is just staggering. Kane isn't just planning to extract wealth from this planet, he's planning to extract the people.
The source material suggests his plan was to sell the Morrowvian women to places like Waldegren, where the demand for beautiful, exotic women in the mining colonies would fetch astronomical prices. He's turning human beings into a commodity.
And the revelation that this is a full-blown slave operation is confirmed by Hayakawa, who intercepts these stray thoughts from Dreebly, the mate.
Dreebly's mind is just filled with this contemptuous glee. He's thinking, and the beauty of it is that the stupid space scouts can't touch us.
Kane believes he's operating entirely within Federation law, and that sets the stage for the most horrifying legal confrontation imaginable.
So the moral conflict has completely crystallized. Grimes now realizes Kane isn't just a privateer, he's a slaver, and he's operating under a legal shield.
And Grimes is 4.5 hours away from Seeker. He's trapped by his explicit orders against interference.
This is a moment of just pure tactical desperation. Grimes knows he can't board the Buster or stop the operation physically without starting a war.
Which would not only violate his orders, but would almost certainly expose the innocent Morrowvians to real harm. So his solution has to be non-lethal, defensive, and indirect.
He orders Saul to lay a non-lethal sleep gas barrage on the riverbank. This is precise. Defensive fire. He's using 60mm automatics loaded with sleep gas shells, and he's aiming to box the targets in without causing any lasting injury.
It's an act of aggressive defense.
Meanwhile, the lookout boat confirms that Kane's operation is in full swing. Kane's 2 officers are marshaling a column of about 200 Morrowvian women.
And they're armed, ironically, only with longbows and quivers, ready to march down to the riverbank. They've been completely misled. They believe they're going to Caribia, that glamorous world from the tourist brochures.
Saul executes the barrage flawlessly. He successfully boxes the targets with the sleep gas shells, putting all the Morrowvians and Kane's 2 groundmen to sleep.
And Kane immediately contacts Grimes, absolutely furious, complaining loudly about the interference and threatening Grimes's career. He insists he was merely impeding the embarkation of my passengers.
So Grimes escalates. He knows that time is his only real asset here. He orders Saul to switch immediately to high-explosive HE shells.
His order is to chew up the ground between Southerly Buster and the intending emigrants.
And crucially, he's not aiming at the ship or at the people. He's aiming at the terrain. This makes the area impassable for Kane's ground cars, and it forces Dreebly to rely entirely on Buster's single lifeboat.
That action, switching to HE, must have felt like a massive risk for Grimes. I mean, he was explicitly warned against interference. Didn't switching from sleep gas to high explosive shells, even as a warning, just completely violate his orders?
Oh, absolutely. It's a massive leap. But Grimes calculated that the political risk of a court-martial was less than the moral imperative of allowing blackbirding to commence. And the slowdown worked.
Dreebly begins this tedious ferrying operation, using the single lifeboat to take 15 people at a time. The reports note the women are handled callously, hoisted aboard via a cargo net.
They're being treated explicitly as cargo. But it's buying Grimes the hours he needs to get back to Seeker and confront the legal reality.
And while he's flying back, Grimes admits his deepest fears to Saul. He realizes that Dreebly, the skeletal mate, was right. The stupid space scouts really couldn't touch them.
This is the moment. The full horror of Federation history just snaps into place for Grimes. The realization that the Morrowvians are non-citizens, they're under people, and therefore they are legally property.
Let's just dedicate a moment to the Non-Citizen Act itself for anyone trying to grasp the gravity of this. The source material tells us this draconian law dates back to the bad old days.
Right, back when genetic engineers were manufacturing androids and underpeople on a massive industrial scale. The history is brutal.
The turning point was the successful android revolt on Dancy, and then the subsequent takeover of the world of Talos by underpeople.
And this shocked the core worlds into action. The Federation established these repressive laws specifically to ensure that genetically engineered, non-baseline humans, or creations like androids, could never achieve political or social equality.
So the critical result of this legislation is that all androids and underpeople were strictly deprived of citizenship. They have no rights whatsoever.
They are legally categorized as property, or cattle, as Kane later describes them. They can be bought, sold, or transported like any other bulk commodity.
And that's Grimes's defeat. He has stalled the operation, but he hasn't stopped it. If the Morrowvians fall under the umbrella of the Non-Citizen Act, Kane is not breaking any law by selling them.
Grimes is, as he puts it, well and truly up the well-known creek without a paddle. The moral high ground is completely irrelevant. Federation law is on the side of the slaver.
It's just staggering that Kane could legally own 200 sentient beings. How did the Federation possibly justify continuing a law that treats thinking life forms as property? And how did Grimes finally connect the Morrowvians to this specific, horrific legal status?
Grimes attributes his realization to, of all things, the pervasive stink of cat in his quarters after Maya had slept there. And that smell, coupled with all the physical and verbal clues he had previously dismissed as just eccentricities.
So let's pull all those physical traits together now that the context is clear. The rudimentary nipples beneath the true breasts, the paw-like hands and feet, the carnivorous teeth.
And the strange drinking and eating habits. Maya lapping the water. These are all subtle, or not so subtle, feline characteristics.
And the verbal clues were equally telling. The use of cat as an insult, a term of opprobrium Janine calling Sabrina that cat.
It suggests an awareness among the Morrowvians themselves of their own non-human origin, something that must have been passed down through generations.
But the deepest clue, the ultimate dark irony, came from the literary connections. The family names, Wells, Morrow, Cordwainer, and Smith.
This is where we get the full picture of Morrow, the genetic engineer, as this twisted ideologue. H.G. Wells wrote The Island of Dr. Moreau.
The classic story of a scientist who surgically and genetically transforms animals into grotesque parodies of human beings.
Cordwainer Smith was the science fiction author who coined the term underpeople, describing genetically engineered animals given human forms and then used as slaves by core humanity.
So Morrow, the genetic engineer passenger on the Lode Cougar, was clearly a science fiction addict with an incredibly dark, self-referential sense of humor.
By using those names, he was signaling his project's dark genesis to anyone in the Federation who cared to look. He was effectively daring them to recognize his work.
And we get the definitive horrifying story when Maggie Lazenby, Dr. Lazenby, the ethologist, returns. She secured the full account from Janine's secret records at Ballarat with Captain Dan Zellin's cooperation.
And it details the Lode Cougar tragedy. The ship, driven far off course, was facing starvation. A mutiny occurred when desperate passengers foraged in the refrigerated cargo.
And the event that triggered the chaos was the mutineers being caught gorging themselves on fertilized human ova.
And the captain deemed this act to be cannibalism, which led to full-scale chaos, the death of the captain and most of the responsible people, and then real cannibalism ensued.
And Morrow, the genetic engineer, then compounded the tragedy. The surviving women of childbearing age conveniently died of food poisoning or accidents.
The reports strongly suggest foul play by Morrow, which left him filled with this intellectual contempt for baseline humans in complete control of the ship's fully equipped lab and the colony's future.
Morrow hated what he called the hairless apes of humanity. He viewed them as morally corrupt and technologically self-destructive.
So he used the only surviving ova, which were cat ova, not human, and his advanced lab to genetically engineer a new people he considered his children.
And he shaped them to fit his anarchist ideals: nudism, decentralized government, and a deep ingrained fear of machines. He even cemented his legacy by marrying one of his own creations, a woman named Galatea.
This confirms it. The Morrovians are biologically sophisticated, cat-derived underpeople, which renders Kane's blackbirding operation completely legal under existing Federation law. Grimes is utterly defeated.
But Maggie Lazenby, she's the voice of analytical reason, and she provides the critical legal counterpunch. She saves the day not through some ethical debate, but through a crucial genetic loophole that was established in Federation common law.
She reveals a critical legal precedent that dates back to the early days of underpeople integration. It's a ruling that states, and I'm quoting here, any people capable of fertile union with true people must themselves be considered true people.
And Danzellen, the Dog Star Line captain who previously only cared about his tourism profits, provides the decisive proof.
During the Corgi's first visit, his second officer, Francis Delamere, a true human from the core worlds, impregnated Queen Lillian's daughter, Tabitha Morrow. And Tabitha recently bore a son who is visibly different.
The biological proof is in the details. The son, unlike all other Morrovians, has a long nose, like his father.
And that single, verified, fertile union between a true human, Delamere, and a Morrovian, Tabitha, is irrefutable evidence.
This biological fact negates the Non-Citizen Act immediately. The Morrowians are legally upgraded to true people, and therefore Federation citizens.
Kane's cargo is no longer property. It is now composed of sentient, rights-bearing humanoids. His entire scheme collapses based on the birth of one single child with a long nose.
With the legal reality completely shifted, Grimes is back aboard Seeker. He knows he can't let Kane escape, even if the cargo is no longer property. He has to disable the Buster before Kane realizes the full extent of his legal defeat and just jumps to FTL.
Buster is buttoning up for liftoff. Grimes initiates the space chase, and he uses tracer shells non-lethal, but designed to be visually spectacular, as a clear warning. He's asserting FSS authority.
Dreebly, who's following Kane's orders and is clearly terrified of the consequences of this delay, he calls chicken and retaliates. He starts hose-piping streams of fire directly over Seeker.
He's not attempting a kill shot, but he is threatening a Federation service ship in a Federation-claimed sector. Grimes immediately orders a ceasefire on his side, not wanting to risk the innocent women still aboard Buster.
But Dreebly's recklessness is confirmed.
So Grimes initiates the space chase, pushing Seeker with maximum emergency rocket power to overtake the slower, bulkier Buster. And he uses this risky, highly specialized technique known as the pin maneuver.
Okay, for the learner, what is the pin maneuver?
It involves Grimes using Seeker's lateral thrusters to anticipate and counter every single directional move that Dreebly makes. He's flying not just to block, but to completely nullify Buster's movement,
Forcing the rival ship to lose valuable altitude and vector control.
and the maneuver only works because of the silent saboteur. Myra Bracegirdle, still on board the Buster and fiercely loyal to her sex, horrified by the slave trade, was secretly feeding information to Hayakawa.
So this psionic intelligence allowed Grimes to perfectly anticipate Dreebly's attempts to wriggle away. It effectively gave Seeker perfect predictive control of the chase.
The ultimate outcome, though, it's not a clean takedown. Grimes, perhaps getting a bit overconfident after the pin maneuver works so perfectly, he taunts Dreebly again, and he miscalculates the necessary clearance.
And Seeker's stern makes this brief, glancing contact with Buster's stem.
It's enough. The collision throws the rival ship violently off balance. Dreebly loses all control, and the southerly buster crashes down onto the planet, tilting until its long axis is parallel to the ground. The results are severe.
Southerly Buster is completely wrecked. The mansion drive is torn out, the instruments are ruined, it will require months of repair, which effectively neutralizes Kane as a threat.
Grimes sends the bruised, shaken Oxford women back to their town safe.
And Kane arrives at the wreckage, just roaring threats. He immediately threatens to report Grimes for piracy and attempts one last time to reestablish the Morrowvians as property under the Non-Citizen Act. He's shouting that they are no more than cattle.
But Maggie delivers the final decisive word. She uses Danzelin's proof, the confirmed birth of Delamere's son, to establish the Morrowvians' indisputable legal status as true people.
And this is the genius of the resolution. Kane is beaten, not by superior force or by moral reasoning, but by a biological and legislative technicality. His whole blackbirding operation, built on exploiting this horrific law, is suddenly invalid.
And Kane, ever the pragmatist, immediately concedes defeat on the legal front. The criminal threat is gone, but the commercial threat remains.
He generously leaves North Australia, the region near Melbourne, to Danzelin, who plans to proceed with his tourist empire.
It's a messy, complex resolution. The Dog Star Line, big business, is now firmly entrenched. And Grimes notes thoughtfully that the Morrowvians, with their innate feline charm combined with a streak of selfishness, may not fare too badly against the initial threat, but their culture is now fundamentally compromised.
So what does this all mean?
Well, this deep dive really shows how one genetic engineer's desire, Morrow's absolute hatred of humanity to create a better human, using cat ova, led to this catastrophic legal confrontation 200 years later.
And Grimes's political and moral victory was only secured because the Federation was forced, by its own obscure legal precedent, to recognize the Morrowvians as citizens.
And it was based on the proof of one single fertile biological event, the conception of a child with a true human father.
The ethical stakes were just colossal. The abolition of a horrific form of slavery versus the subtle corruption of unchecked capitalism. Kane was beaten not by superior morality or firepower, but by a highly specific loophole in genetic law that proved they were human enough to warrant legal protection.
So the Morrowvians are safe from slavery, but now they face the benevolent exploitation of the Dog Star Line and the inevitable corruption that comes with becoming a highly publicized tourist destination for the idle rich.
Which raises an important question for you, the learner, to consider as you reflect on this deep dive. The Morrowvians, who find fighting unthinkable and who value extreme privacy, have no real defenses against the onslaught of big business that now sees them as living tourist attractions.
But consider their origins. Their ingrained, cat-derived traits include self-preservation, intense privacy, innate charm, and a touch of inherent selfishness, coupled with those very sharp claws. So will the inheritors survive by submitting to the exploiters or by attempting futile resistance? Or will they perhaps learn to use those same unique feline characteristics to exploit the exploiters themselves?